Hey, how's it going? My name's Neil. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to today's video about skateboard knee pads. Okay, so this video is long overdue. Those of you who follow my channel will know that I've already done some videos on other safety gear, and I'd kind of planned to do the videos in order of importance. So first I did about helmets, then I did wrist guards, and this is the third one, so I'll be talking about knee pads. Now, knee pads aren't all that important if you are a street skater, and you don't tend to see many people street skating in knee pads at all. Partly that's a fashion thing or a self-conscious thing, but also people will probably tell you that knee pads are quite restrictive to your body movement in certain ways, more so in street skating than anything else. But if you're a beginner and you're just learning to skateboard, all the padding that you can get is going to be beneficial to you because you won't have the kind of balance that people will have after they've been skating a little while. So falling is inevitable. It's just going to happen when you first start skateboarding. Once you've been on the board a little while, you'll begin to get a decent balance and you might feel like you don't need the pads anymore because you never fall. The basic option for pads has been pretty much the same since skateboarding was invented. I think really the thinking was to just protect all the areas of your body that stick out. So that would be like elbows, knees, head, and obviously hands and wrists. So it's become a pretty standard option for you to find knee pads, elbow pads, wrist guards and helmets as the sets of pads that you can get. Knee pad design hasn't really evolved massively since the 1980s really, when I first started skateboarding. But I think manufacturing costs and global shipping has meant that there are some better options and more protective options these days, but the fundamental design is pretty much the same. So when you first start skateboarding and you think you might want to buy a set of pads, you're going to go around looking for the cheapest ones you can find because, you know, cheap is good, right? You know, you're not sure whether you're going to carry on skateboarding. So what's the point of dropping 100 or so on a set of pads that you might not actually use? Well, that's kind of the basic thinking for most people starting out. So looking around, you're probably going to get led to something like these pad sets you can get. So I was the same. I went and got these Protec pads. I think they're named something along the lines of street set or something like that. Although what I said, you know, you don't tend to see street skaters using pads, but regardless. And these pads are pretty much what was available to me in the 80s when I used to skate. Pretty simple design. It's a bit of foam padding, neoprene backing with some Velcro straps around the back and a plastic plate on the front. These ones usually have rivets to hold the plates on. They're not very thick, and that's kind of a fundamental point. The padding's pretty chunky, but it's not very thick. And really what these ones will do is just stop basic bruising if you fall over from standing height. So if you're standing on your board rolling along and you trip over and you put your hands out and fall down and perhaps go to your knees at that point, these will protect you for that. Simple riding, beginning to learn to ride mini ramps and bowls and things, that nothing too big, and generally they'll protect you pretty well falling from kind of standing up height. Once you start to get onto slightly bigger things, gravity means that the force at which you will fall is going to leave a heavier impact. And from the perspective of an older skater like me, it's not so much about bruises anymore after that point. What it's really about is protecting your joints. So your knee joints, when you fall on your knees, is going to compress. As you get older, the compression on your joints is not going to be anything like it was when you were younger. As you get older, the fluid in your joints gets worse, you get less flexible. And so really what you're wanting to do is protect your joints so that you can keep on going for as long as possible. Now, if you're over about 35, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's those aches and pains that you get standing up out of a chair, or when you first start riding a bicycle for the first time in a few days or something. It's those aches and pains. Really, it's the joint maneuverability and flexibility that you start to lose as you get older. Now you might ask, why are knee pads such a big thing for skateboarders? Like, what's the big deal? Well, really, when you're skating transition, whether that be mini ramps, bowls, anything remotely large. The best way to bail or exit out of a trick that you're not landing is to actually go into a knee slide. Knee slides are fundamentally important to safe skateboarding. It's a way for you to get off the board without damaging your body any more than you need to. So if you're on a fairly high transition and you just run out of a trick, you're putting a massive impact on your joints. So that's your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips. You know, the heavy impact that you put through your feet and the rest of your lower limbs as you run out of a trick is pretty hardcore for all of those joints involved. You'll end up getting heel bruises in your feet, which are really annoying if you're trying to skate. You know, heel bruise can take like 6 weeks to get rid of, so it can really hamper your skating. You can get things like footprint insoles, which I've done a video about before, but really you don't want to run out of tricks. The safest way to get out of a trick is a knee slide into the transition, and really what that's doing is you've got the shape of the transition. If you step off your board and slide into a knee slide and slide down the transition, that's a lot better for you than jumping out of the transition and then trying to run down, or jumping out and landing in the flat, all kinds of reasons. So knee slides are the fundamental bail from a trick on transition. So that's the importance of the knee slide, and it's almost like one of the first tricks you need to learn. It's not even a trick, but you need to learn your safe exit out of any kind of problems that you might be getting into trying to learn how to do tricks. You need to learn your exit plan before you try and do the trick. Safe exit means you won't be so scared about trying to attempt the trick. So once you've been using knee pads like this for a little while, you might think they're fine. They're fine. They're not perfect, but they're very cheap. They won't last that long, and they won't provide the kind of impact protection that you'll need to make sure that your knees last a lot longer than they would otherwise. One other kind of small fundamental problem I found with these ones, which are the Protec ones, the plastic cap comes down nice and low. That's a good thing because it's, you know, more coverage, but the edge there, it's strangely kind of sharp, and so your knee and then the shin coming down this far, sometimes the pads can sort of flex a bit, and that's a bit dangerously close to your shin. I never sustained an injury from there, but I was always conscious of it and thought it was a bit weird that there was that like strange sharp edge to the cap. But anyway, so yeah, once you've got through these and been riding them for quite a while, you'll know that you need to step it up. And the best kind of protection you can have for your knees are some of the pro knee pads. There's various brands. There's these ones that I use, which are the 187 Killer Pro. 187 do actually make some pads like this as well, and the telltale sign is the rivets in the kneecaps. But the ones that you really want to look for are the Killer Pro, which are like a complete cap, and as you can see, they are a whole lot thicker. So you know, if I compare the two, these are very thin. Hopefully you can see that these are very thin and these are very thick. So that's going to tell you how much extra padding there is in these Killer Pros. So they feel a bit weird when you first wear them, when you first put them on. They feel like they stick out from your knee a very long way, and it's the same case for other brands as well. So, you know, not only is there 187 Killer Pros, there's brands like TSG, Boneless, Pro Design. I'm sure I'm missing some other ones that everybody's got. I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments below. But generally, all of the more pro-end pads are a lot thicker, so that they offer you much better compression when you land on your knees if you bail out of a trick. You will massively notice the difference between the cheaper, thinner ones and the thicker ones. And I would say if you are 30 and over, you really should be using something like this on transition if you're skating transition. If you're younger, you might not care so much. A lot of people still don't want to wear pads at all, which is fine, but you know, that's your choice. For people my sort of age, generally you wear pads. That's what we did in the 80s, and that's what we do now. And let's be real, you know, most of us have got jobs and obligations to family and such that we can't be holed up in bed with injuries that are stopping us from working and all the usual stuff that life gives us. So, you know, I'm not here to debate whether or not you want to wear pads. I'm here to just tell you about these knee pads. So the general construction of the knee pads is almost the same. You know, you've got these elastic straps that go around. There's the inner sort of butterfly strap. So you've got two lots of strapping. You've got these butterfly straps that go around first and kind of hold the knee pad in place. Then you've got this bigger strap that goes around the top, and then another one that goes through a loop, and then you pull that through and stick it back on itself. So there's a lot of strapping on there to hold them in place. And the other key factor about these is they have replaceable caps. The pads themselves will last you at least a couple of years, and the caps can last that long as well. The ones that come from 187, they do wear out. They tend to wear, and then you know, once they wear down, you tend to get a couple of splits that go vertically down there. But they are replaceable. They're Velcroed on, so you literally pull up that Velcro, and then inside there is a Velcro strap that is goes into the cap and through a loop in the cap. So you just literally pull that strap through the loop and it's off. So you got like 3 strips of Velcro on the front, 3 strips of Velcro in the cap, and you literally peel that up, feed it through the loop in the plastic like that, and then pull it down tight and stick it over, and then just push that in place. And that's it. And that is on strong enough once you start riding them. That's on strong enough to hold them in place, and they won't fall off. And that internal strap as well means they won't fall off. So that's the 187 ones. I do use some third-party caps that I'll do a video about some other time because they last a bit longer than these 187s. But that's the fundamentals of the knee pad. Whatever brand you get is much of a muchness. They're not going to be amazingly different, but generally most people you see will be riding these 187s. There's not a lot of choice in the UK anyway. There's a bit more choice around Europe. TSG are a bit more attainable in Europe. And in the USA, the other brands that I mentioned, like Pro Design or Boneless S1 is another brand. They're a bit more available in the USA, but the rest of Europe, generally it's either imported from the USA or TSG, which I think are a European brand. But they're all pretty much got the same fundamentals to them. They're made out of like ripstop nylon. They've got a lot of heavy stitching. You do get these sort of wear points like here and here. For some reason, they tend to wear there more than anywhere else. But in my experience, what goes first is the Velcro starts to shred. The elastic starts to get too stretched out and too long, so it's no longer holding them on tight anymore. And the neoprene and the butterfly straps starts to break apart. So the fastenings of the pads will deteriorate way before the functionality will. Really, at that point when all the fabric and everything starts to go wrong, it's time to replace them. But they will last you a couple of years. They certainly do for me. So one final thing really is about the price. You know, these are expensive. They're about £80 in the UK, so whatever that translates to in euros and dollars. They are cheaper in the USA because our prices have got import costs on top, obviously. So it seems like they're expensive, but what price do you put on the longevity of your skating? If it means that your knees last longer because the joints are getting the kind of protection that they need, to me, if you work that out, spread that out over 2 years, you know, that's nothing. The cost of that is nothing. You spend more on, you know, stupid, ridiculous things, I'm sure. So they're not expensive. Yes, it might be a kind of expensive outlay as a one-off, but you know, if you're playing other sport, you know, skateboarding is cheap, really. Other sports, I don't know, even golf or things like that, is way more expensive. The cost of season tickets for football, all those things. So it's not expensive in the greater scheme of things. Skateboarding is a cheap pursuit. So anyway, I think that's enough. I think you got the general idea. I recommend these pads, these 187 Killer Pros. By all means, let me know what you have in the comments below, what you prefer. Maybe you don't like pads at all. I know a lot of people don't. They feel like they're restricted. But in my experience, the feeling of restriction goes away after a little while. You just got to wear them for long enough to get used to them. And then that feeling of restriction goes away. You get over it. Your body adapts. You know, the human body is very clever in the way that it adapts over problems. So that's certainly one. So I personally don't don't ever skate without them anymore. So yeah, highly recommended to wear some knee pads. So I hope you found that video useful. Let me know in the comments below what you think. As ever, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting my channel, and I'll see you again soon for another video. Cheers.